Councilman DuPont.
Here.
Councilwoman Horgan.
Here.
Councilwoman Lee.
Here.
Councilman Murphy.
Here.
Sunshine State.
Let the minutes reflect that in compliance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act, the notice of this meeting has been provided by notifying the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger, placing a notice on the bulletin board and filing the same with the Borough Clerk on January 1, 2013.
Thank you. There are nothing in terms of suspension order of business, no workshop. Approval of the minutes, October 9th motion.
Moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? There are no mayoral appointments, no reports from mayor and council committee members, and no communications and petitions. Any members of the public wish to have any comments on any resolutions, since we have no ordinances on the agenda this evening? Resolutions only. Now's the time. Seeing none, motion to close.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
There are no ordinances for first or public hearing. Resolutions by consent, Resolution 13-232 to Resolution 13-237. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Proclamations, there are none. Payment of vouchers be it resolved by the mayor and council to be paid on the attached check registry totaling $578,247.70. Motion? Councilman DuPont, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Old business, any old business? Any new business? Audience, any members of the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay to use the table? Is it okay if I work from here?
Sure.
Okay. My name is Christy O'Brien. I'm a 9-year resident of 51 Garfield Place. I'm here because some of our...
What's your last name, Christine?
O'Brien?
O'Brien, okay.
Yes, Christy O'Brien.
Thank you.
I live on Garfield Place. I'm here to talk about some traffic measures that a neighbor of mine had mentioned in the last council meeting. This is kind of a more formal follow-up. Art was here last meeting?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean on, okay, this is not on the Walgreen application?
No.
Yeah,
Separate. Yeah,
this is
not
on
what
the
we're
traffic
doing.
count that we talked about in terms of the
Just
the
the
lane load.
increased
yeah,
traffic that we're
regulations,
seeing
yes.
in our neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I've prepared just something a little more formal that I thought I'd hand out and we can all take a look
Sure.
at.
Thank you.
That's okay? Sure.
Mr. O'Brien, what's your address on Garfield?
51,
Red Bank, Blue Silver.
Red Bank.
Thank you. I think as you're passing those out, Ms. O'Brien, my recollection is that I think I suggested to Mr. Zimanis that that the neighbors get together and talk a little bit.
Yeah.
And we would be acceptable, we would be amenable to receiving information and also to passing it on to the police department and also the engineer so that we can act on it. So that my confusion was that I know that there was a traffic expert done with the Walgreen application, we can't consider that.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, it's the other thing we talked
Yeah,
about.
I'd like to talk about just strictly some increase in traffic that we've seen
Sure.
within the neighborhood. And we're asking for some help in implementing some measures that we think can create a safer area for pedestrians, neighborhood visitors, our children. We happen to have 8 children under the age of 8 in the neighborhood. We also happen to have 14 pets. People walk their dogs all the time. Our street, Garfield, on the, let's see, southwest corner, there's a medical building. Oftentimes they're professionals during lunch will walk through our street, so they're exercising and they're looking to take a break, so people are walking through. Neighboring neighborhoods will walk their pets through. We have in between East Lake and West Lake Drive, which is the first right off of Garfield, we have a green island where people are throwing balls to dogs, and it's a good place to walk your dog because of that existing island. Also, RBC's sports team use our neighborhood to cross through to their football field. So, in summary, in certainly the 9 years that I've lived here, my neighbors much longer, I've certainly seen a significant increase in traffic. My daughter, for her 4th birthday this weekend, is going to be getting a bike, and this is of concern to me. We want to be able to walk in the street, we want to be able to ride our bikes and walk our pets and live freely in the neighborhood. So what I've done here is we've met with the neighbors many times, and this is kind of what we thought we'd present in agreement. And the thing that I'd like to point out, I don't expect that we go through in each and every detail, but there are a few things that I'd like to point out. One is, regardless of what occupies that Rassus space, that we consider making Garfield Place heading west a one-way, up to the point where those businesses end or begin, where the street would be two-way, very similar to Wyckoff Place, which is across the street from Garfield, on the other side of the Food Town property, where you can turn a left, but in the middle of the street, you could actually exit Food Town and make a left or a right. So similar instance. So if we made Garfield a two-way street, exiting, entering from Broad, up to the point of where the businesses stop, and then from that point on, one-way headed west. I've also included a map, which you'd see on page 4, which is just an illustration to show how we're suggesting the traffic flow. As well as do not enter signs, so that cars that are coming in, whether it be from the medical building or whatever occupies the Rassus spot, know that they can't continue down the street. And then it's just some traditional signs, speed limits, which we have none of, a few stop signs that we thought might help also mitigate speeding cars that come through, and also 4-ton limit. I have a photo appendix throughout this presentation, one which will show heavy trucks that are coming through the neighborhood daily, and if we could somehow have help in minimizing the size of those trucks that can come through, that would help greatly as well.
You did a nice job on this.
Thank you. So, yeah, you know,
You want to be the volunteer traffic consultant for the borough of Redmond? Pays a big $1 a
very
year.
busy woman, I appreciate the offer. You know, Garfield and Grant are very quiet streets without this traffic, and I have pictures in here that were supplied by some of my neighbors. It really is, you know, I called it here a hidden gem. When I tell people where I live, they always comment, wow, you know, people don't really know about the neighborhood, it's nice and quiet, and we see a lot of kids, and we see a lot of pets, and it really is that. I also have a photo in here. I worked from home last Friday, and I went for a run at noon, and the traffic at the corner of let's see, Broad and Maple, maybe that light, the light in front of Food Town, in front of Rassus, the traffic was backed up all the way to East Bergen. That's 2 lights back in the middle of the day. You know, that's not even a peak hour. And people are getting frustrated. They're coming through the neighborhood. And you know, I, as a resident, when I want to get to the Grove, I don't always go that way. I'm even taking the side roads, but I live there. So people are now, they're learning the tricks, they're cutting through, and we do believe that there's a real safety concern, and you know, we'd like to bring attention to it and ask for some help.
So Brian, I think the simple and the quick answer, I believe, and I'm speaking on behalf of all members of the council, is first of all, thank you for your efforts, and I want to thank Mr. Zamanis because he followed through on what we asked him to do, and I see that I recognize many of the signatures at the end, including one relative of mine.
Sure.
Who's very opinionated at age 90.
Right.
So it's helpful to us, that's number one. Number two, you've done what we asked you to do, and now it's time for us to circulate it and take the appropriate review. So this will be given by me and by the commissioner to the police department. We will sit down with it very expeditiously and take a look at it. And based upon, I'm not an engineer, but based upon what I've seen here, I believe that all of your recommendations and suggestions are reasonable.
Sure.
And I believe that they will be met favorably by the council as soon as we get our traffic safety officer to agree on it. One of the things that I know Councilman DuPont brought to my attention, I guess about 2 weeks ago, and we talked about it very early, I think it's 7 o'clock on a Monday morning, and that is that we in Red Bank also favor the greater implementation of four-way directional stop signs. And in your neighborhood, even outside of the targeted area that you've chosen, but similar neighborhoods in the South Street and Hudson Avenue area and Bergen Place, there is a dying need for four-way stop signs because there's just a lot more kids who are walking to school, and the traffic has to be slowed down, especially cut-through traffic that comes from other towns on the peninsula down Bergen Place. So I think that this is helpful for us to get the start off, but I think what we're already looking at is outside of there to slow down traffic even further by having more four-way stop signs in
That would be great.
and South Street and Bergen Place, as well as perhaps Hudson Avenue and Bergen Place would probably be the next available targeted points because the traffic has to slow down. But unless there's objection, which I don't think that there is, this will go directly to the Traffic Safety Department, and I anticipate that probably not by the November 7th meeting, because that's too soon,
Okay,
that perhaps the second council meeting in November, we will be able to come up with a recommendation from Traffic Safety and the Police Department, and I'm sure that the press will probably advise, but I would target, Pam, what's the second meeting in November? Okay, well, let's talk about that right now. Evidently, the 20th is the regular meeting, but that's going to be moved to when?
yeah, of course.
Monday the 18th?
So Ms. O'Brien, I mean, just real quick,
Sure.
the office building's on the corner of Broad and Garfield, right?
Yeah.
So they would enter to go to work on Pinckney Road, and they would have the option of when they leave to go left or right,
That's right.
according to, yes.
Yeah, so, and oftentimes their parking lot's full,
Yeah,
so their customers, their patients park
Sure.
on the street.
yeah. And you know, I don't mean to interrupt, Mayor, don't we have a 4-ton limit on the residential streets? Didn't we do that with RJ?
I think so.
We do, but this is helpful. I think
Or was it
it's-
certain streets? We'll look into it, right?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Does anyone else have any questions? I'm happy to talk through any of this.
I thought the request for more information.
No, it works out.
More come work for,
So there is a petition enclosed. I also, just for your information, I Google mapped the houses in the neighborhoods, and you can see we have 100% consensus. Everyone within the neighborhood has agreed to it, so that you won't be getting phone calls later saying I didn't, because they have.
I'm gonna need a number, some way to, somehow,
There's-
means to get in contact with you.
There's contact information on the last page.
Is your name-
My cell phone, my home number, and my email.
the petition right there on the very last page.
Oh, okay, great, good.
All right.
Yeah, Mayor, and I'll hand this to, Travis.
Unless there's any further questions on it, the only other follow-up, and we'll add a resolution in a few minutes, would be to change the November 20th meeting, which is actually the lead night, to Monday, November 18th, which would be 2 days before. So unless there's objection, the council meeting, and this matter should be on our agenda for November 18th.
Great. So we'll continue discussion at that point.
Yes.
Okay.
I think that, like I said, we'll probably be ready to act that night.
Okay, great.
As soon as we get recommendations. Yes, Art?
Mr. Mayor, the only thing is that the other night I was at the planning board meeting, I believe that the next meeting is on the 18th for the planning
Oh,
board.
is it?
So I don't know.
It is, that's right. We were here, yes, that's right.
Yeah, that's a
That's
planning board night.
So I just want to bring that to you.
Then it would have to be the 25th, I guess. Sorry about that, guys. See, I'm not participating in Walgreens, so I don't know when the next meeting is. So it'll be the 25th. I don't anticipate that the Walgreens application will be finished by the 18th. From what I read.
Neither do we.
Okay.
I just want to mention that.
Any other questions on this? You have to come up because you have to get you on tape.
I just wanted to ask Chrissy something.
They can't get you on tape from back there.
Okay.
Sorry, don't be shy.
No, I'm not.
Your name and address,
Gina
please.
Slater, 14 Grant Place.
Thank you.
The lamp post that we have on here, which we don't have,
Right.
which we've been without for about 4 or 5 years. Our street is so dark.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it went press, there was a traffic accident
Yeah.
on the street at one point, and the lamppost was not replaced, and we're just asking for replacement in addition to
Right.
the other things.
Stanley, call Public Works, let them know right away.
There's no existing lamp post there right now.
It is pretty dark.
Yeah.
Is the base there?
No, nothing is
The
there.
whole structure's been removed, and in fact, the curb is broken in the sidewalk. It was
You
just,
know,
it was
I'm
never
I'm
just.
having a meeting with JCP&L, we had that meeting today, I think it's next week.
It used to be a gas lamp post that was there, like we have on the corners.
Well, Victoria,
Yes, yes.
we'll bring it up at the JCP&L meeting.
Great,
I think we've got about 4 dozen ordered from them. Hopefully we'll get them.
great.
Okay, anybody else in terms of public? Yes, sir.
Sorry, I'm making a mess of my handouts.
There's still a page on the floor.
No, I think it's a couple of pages. So in
Your name and address, please.
Paul Kinsella, 12 Westlake Road, Red Bank, New Jersey.
Thank you.
You know, in addition to some of the concerns that we have in the greater Garfield Place neighborhood, one of the things that's come to our attention, not only looking at the traffic safety involved in the neighborhood, is that the parcel that abuts up against the neighborhood is owned for highway business. Can I hand these out? Sure. If you notice from this, and it's not the greatest. I got it. Yeah. And we're not, I'm not far along as Christie is with her presentation, but if you notice in the lower right-hand corner, there is an X, which is block 120, lot 53.09. The lower right-hand corner, there's an X. It's block 120, lot 53.09.
He's got it Xed out.
Right, got it.
That is currently zoned for highway business. On that map, and also then checking with the map, the more comprehensive map in the zoning office, that is the only parcel of highway business that abuts a residential neighborhood. The other highway business lots are along Newman Springs Road, which abut the park, and I think there's a power plant back there, the transfer station. So what we are asking as a neighborhood, if you would take into consideration rezoning that so it is more in line with the rest of zoning on Elm Street and Broad Street, which is all professional office.
So do you know if lot 120 is owned by Rassus?
It is the current Rassus lot.
Is that part of the application, sir, or not?
Is it part of the application?
Yes.
Yeah.
What are they using it for?
Yeah, one person at a time. We're on tape, but only one person can speak. So I asked Stanley, he said yes. Now, Christine, how about you?
That is the Buick Rassus.
Okay, the 120, is that part of the Rassus application currently?
It is part of the
Yes.
application. I took the lot number from the application.
Okay, so it is included in whatever they're
Yes.
presenting before the
So
planning board.
what we're hoping though, as things move forward, if that status should change of that application, that we could then have the board petition that we can have this process moving forward, because it seems to us as it's something that has been overlooked because Rassus has been there as a legacy now for almost 70 years. It's highway business. In reality, looking at the map and how Broad Street and Elm Street are laid out, it just kind of was never thought of. And it's not in the proper space, I think, for a highway business that it directly abuts up against residential neighborhoods. Or residential neighborhoods.
I think I understand what you're saying now, but unfortunately, as Mr. Overman will tell you, once an application is currently pending before an administrative board, we would not be in a position to make those changes unless something happens.
And that's what we're asking. So if something does happen to the application, that we have, notify the board that that is our wish.
Okay.
As I said, we're not as far along as what Christie presented, but just this afternoon, I put together a petition, and within an hour, we had about 15 people sign it. I'm sure within that entire neighborhood, we can get at least 100 signatures. I would even venture, if I went downtown and explained to people what we were trying to do, I could get 500 signatures, because everyone I've spoken to is very concerned about that lot.
Okay.
All right, so thank you.
We'll keep this, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so if something does change, we'll appreciate the consideration.
Thank you. Anybody else? Cindy?
Good evening. Cindy Barnum, 71 Wallace Street. I'm here tonight just to follow up on something that I've been asking the council, talking to you about for the last couple of months. The pay stations and programming them, which would cost no money to the town or taxpayers, but programming them to say free parking on Sundays.
I think they already do. I think the guy, he told me he changed them.
Oh,
He changed them like
it's a
3,
done
4
deal?
weeks ago.
Yeah.
Sure,
Okay,
maybe 5.
I haven't checked them lately,
Oh.
so all right.
Okay.
I don't think it's been 5.
Oh, it's been a while, but you know
It's been
what?
maybe
It
3
may have been
months.
changed, I could definitely say
Good.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
changed.
All right, well, thank you. The second thing I wanted to bring up was something that was brought up at the debate by Andre Simonson regarding Red Bank's desire to remove the entire Maple Cove lot and the entire 94 Front Street lot from the Green Acres open space list, where it is now and where they are protected from sale. And, you know, this is more than an environmental issue. This is about fiscal responsibility, taxpayer dollars, and public trust. And, you know, Kathy and Sharon have an ad on Red Bank Green, and they talk about honesty and transparency, but you girls had it all wrong at the debate about what's really going on down there. And Stan, I think you probably know what's really going on. And what I want to know is, you know, what is your desire? Are you going to follow through with this public hearing or not? Because you started this thing in 2012, in June. You know, Christine wrote that she had to get some property off the Rossi. And by August 9th, 2012, you know, I'm looking at a letter from T&M to Green Acres saying that Red Bank is prepared to proceed with public notification and hearing requirements. So, you know,
So,
can you be
let me-
transparent? Let me know.
Why don't you let Stanley answer that?
Yes.
I can explain that. I can tell you what the driving force behind it. Seems somebody, I believe at the time lived in Harrison Avenue, or maybe now live in Wallace
Stanley,
Street.
if it was,
Yeah,
I'd take full
I-
credit.
good. Complained to DEP
That's right.
that because the property was on the Rossi, that the parking needed to be restricted for kayakers.
For park users, that's the
Park
DEP
users.
regulation.
So we met with the DEP, we discussed with the DEP. They say, well, it's on your Rossi, you created this park. We said we did not create a park. We acquired this property. We had a long discussion, and the long story short is, when we checked the council minutes, checked the ordinances when we bought the property, both properties were purchased for the purpose of providing parking for the library. That was in the council minutes, in the resolutions, and the ordinances. So, if the DEP, if we were to comply with the DEP order, both of these parking lots, the one that were purchased for the purpose of providing parking for the library, which had no parking, the library, we couldn't use the parking for the library. So that's the driving force behind removing them from the Rossi. The discussions we've had with the DEP were, A, they needed documentation to that, which we did send. Copies of the minutes, copies of the ordinances, copies of the bond ordinances. And we discussed removing the parking lot portion on Maple Avenue, just the parking lot, because there's 2 lots there.
Well, you said entire lot in the request. It says entire lot. I have the letter
We've
right here.
discussed with DEP removing the parking lot portion. And we've discussed with DEP removing both pieces of the library property. As you know, that property narrows to a very narrow margin down and towards the water. But in as much as it's dedicated to the library use, we also have a deed restriction in the library that that property can't be used for public gathering. So we petitioned, the discussion was to remove both lots, because there's a waterfront lot and the upland lot from the Rossi. They sent back a letter where they agreed that that would be an appropriate thing to do, and
Well,
discuss, and gave us the guidelines, on how to do it. We just have not gotten around to having the public hearing, but that was the discussion.
Okay.
There's no plans in the council to change the use of that property other than to remove the restriction where the parking would be restricted only for park use.
Well, the way I understand it is that, yes, you're partly right, but it does not have to be an all or nothing scenario. I've got 2 letters from the DEP to you, Stan, saying that it doesn't have to be an all or nothing scenario where you can still, you've adhered to the DEP regulations in the library parking lot by putting up those signs that say for park and library use.
That's not what they said.
Well, I disagree, but you know what, Stan?
I quote from the letter, August 18th from DEP.
August 8th.
However, please be advised the borough is responsible for making sure only park
Right.
users use the parking area, period.
And you're right,
So
but that's,
with that, the borough investigated what we needed to do to remove that restriction, and they said to remove the restriction, you have to remove it from the Rossi.
well, I disagree with that because I've spoken to them and what they told me was, and I've got 2 letters that say it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. They've said that they won't even entertain taking Maple Cove Park off. They want you to keep the lowlands on the
We've
library.
agreed to that.
Okay,
No, we've
and,
agreed to the Maple Avenue lowlands.
okay, and Stan, they also said that you can still keep the parking lot for park users only at Maple Cove, and you can dedicate 3 places, 3 parking spaces for public, just like what you did in the library. You've got for parking for the library and for the park. So you've got those 2 entities using that 1 parking lot. So I think you need to revisit that.
The library property is not a park. The library property was purchased for the sole purpose of providing parking for the library.
Well, no, Stan, because you know what, on all the Rossies, it says Red Bank Eisner Library Parking Lot and Park. You look at the Rossies, all of them refer
we
to
also-
library parking lot and park.
Also, none of those Rossies were approved by council. There was no resolutions authorizing those Rossies,
Well, I don't know.
which is also what we gave to the DEP.
And you know what, Stan, I'm looking at a Red Bank waterfront plan, December 2006, and it clearly shows the library property is designated as park. It's in green, next to the library, 94, is clearly listed as park, and Maple Cove is listed as public. So, I mean, this is just, things that I'm going to present in a public hearing to substantiate that I've got so much information that substantiates the fact that these properties were purchased and designated for conservation, recreation, and open space. And when we wanted to put the garden down there at 94, Sharon Lee said, no, we can't. This is the only place left where people can get to the river. We want to keep this open for the public. So like Andre said, why would you want to take it off? And you ladies sit there, but you're not saying anything about this. You're all about honesty and transparency. You're all about saving, waterfront access and everything, but nobody's standing up and saying anything about this. So what I really want to know is, are you going to have the public hearing or not? Can you give me a yes or no?
I think the answer is yes, that's what he said.
Yes, okay.
And you'll be able to present all the information.
Exactly, I know that.
That you did this evening, and more information, I'm sure.
Oh, I know.
There has to be a public hearing under state law.
Yes.
And one thing I think I will say unequivocally, that despite comments to the contrary, in the 8 or 9 years that we've been discussing this, there was never any discussion about selling either one of these properties.
Well, it was in the,
Yeah.
we don't need to get into that, Stan, because
Well,
when we
I'm
found
just
Maple
saying,
Cove, it was already, it had already been appraised.
So
Okay.
we've never had an appraisal
And I've got
of
the letter from Hovnanian asking to buy it, so.
We have never had an appraisal of that property.
I would have to,
Yes,
wait a
you
minute.
do.
You have a letter
Yes, you
asking
did.
to buy it when he's trying to sell his property, and that makes no
Yes,
sense.
I do, I have the letter. I have the
Okay,
letter.
never
And
mind.
Sharon Lee seconded it.
Okay.
Second
Yeah,
what?
second.
So what did I
Okay.
second? Sandy, what did I second?
the resolution so that, well, they sent the letter one day, Hovnanian to town, and then at the next council meeting, which I think was a few days later, you seconded a resolution to allowing Hovnanian to do contamination testing over there.
That's not seconding anything. Cindy, you and I, our very first conversation, the very first conversation that I met you, when I met you the first time
It
on
was
the
boom,
phone.
boom, boom. It was setting
You
it up
called
for
me,
sale.
you called me one night and we spoke for hours. Do you remember the first conversations we had?
I do, but I don't remember hours.
Okay, we spoke a very long time.
Yes.
We knew a lot of people,
Right.
similar people. It was at that time I told you that we were not selling that lot. We did not sell it. You picked up the ball and you ran with it doing
You didn't
part.
sell the lot because the people came out and.
No. The decision to
Well,
not sell that lot was
I don't
made the
believe
same
that.
time it was to not sell Count Basie, the Learning Center. It was the
And that
same
was
time.
David Proud's whole thing.
Same time,
So I
same
think
time.
when you take
Decision
credit for
was
things
made
you
before
didn't
that.
do.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
for clarification,
Let's clarify on
The
that
approval-
contamination problem, because that's what she's talking about, comparing apples and oranges. It had nothing
Hovnanian,
to do with the sale of the property. It had something to do with an easement where he would pay to eliminate some contamination on some property that was adjacent to
No,
it.
he was
Exactly.
testing, he
Mayor-
was testing.
Hovnanian owned the property in the corner, 102 West Front, the corner building, and they had contamination, and the contamination had seeped onto our property, and we gave them permission to do the testing. They had to have their permission from us for their environmental cleanup people as part of their assessment of the property and cleanup of the property to come onto our property to clean up any contamination.
Right.
First determine if there was
Testing.
contamination and to clean it up. Had nothing to do with the sale of any borough property.
And they also cut down all the maple trees that were against, in violation
All
of
right, let's
DEP
talk about
regulations.
contamination, not
But
maple
no, I
trees.
just wanted to know about.
Maple trees get in.
I wanted to know about the public hearing. Do you have any
There will be a
guesstimate
public-
when you're going to do this? We talking a month, to a year, 6 months? What are you thinking?
Don't know.
Don't know. Okay, thank you.
Mr. DeSona?
All right. Sean DeSoma, 28 Morford Place. I'm here tonight just as a citizen, and if you remember, I was at a council meeting a little while back, maybe April. I think we were talking about banning smoking in parks. Remember that, right? We were talking about that? Do you remember that? Okay. Kathy, I think you said something like, well, I think it's a good idea because it'll prevent cigarette butts from going into the river. Right? Does that sound like something you said? Okay. It is something you said. Yeah, no,
I
it
have to look at the minutes.
Okay, well, it really stuck out in my mind. So when was the last time anybody here has ever been in the Navasink River, down off of West Sunset? Yeah, right there in the river. Has anybody been there recently? Okay. And what have you seen?
It needs to be cleaned up, you know, there's
What's in there?
garbage.
What garbage? What kind of garbage?
There's lots of large metal items that shouldn't be
Right.
retired, that kind of.
Yeah, 55-gallon drums.
Very, very concerned about that.
Right, 55-gallon drums. What was in those 55-gallon drums? What's in them? They're rusted out right on the banks of the water, and we're talking about banning smoking in a park to save the environment. And we're talking about all these nutty ideas like banning plastic bags and everything else to save the environment. Meanwhile, you've allowed, and not told anybody about it, by the way. I don't know when you guys have ever told anybody about it, but we've got 55-gallon drums, 50 and 60-year-old construction equipment, and construction materials in the river, not more than about 50 feet from where people cast their line to fish. Now, you can sit here and say, right, Kathy, that's your favorite line, you're grandstanding, right? But I'm not grandstanding. There are 55-gallon drums in the river. Now, you want to say I'm angry? You bet I am. 55-gallon drums. Not only that, a tree grown right through a tire. Through a tire. Probably about, I'm no horticulturist or whoever would know anything about trees, but I can tell you right now, it's about 10 to 12 feet tall. So how long has that stuff been there? This is not something new. This has been there for a long time. And what have you done about it? As the liaison to the Environmental Commission, what have you done? I'm very angry. Yeah, I'll answer that for you right away.
Perhaps the borough engineer could outline for you the steps the borough's been taking over the past, 10 years with regard to the old landfill.
Sure.
Perhaps you could summarize
Yeah.
what the borough's been doing?
Yeah, no, if you don't mind, just one.
No, we're going to answer this question.
No, I will.
You can ask the question,
I
you can
promise,
answer.
I promise, Stanley, I will, but here's.
Mr. Solomon, Mr. Solomon,
Yeah.
you asked the question.
You got to speak, and I think the
Yeah,
administrator
I-
would like the
I-
engineer to
yeah.
come in afterwards, let the
Yeah.
engineer speak.
Beginning probably about 10 or so years ago, obviously this was a landfill site. We all know that. We had an incinerator. We first applied to Monmouth County Community Block Development for grant funding there. And their program was only going to give us about $100,000, but this is an 8-acre site. And extensive cleanup was required. So they directed us to the HDSRF program, the Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund. In order to qualify for funding under that program, we had to deed restrict the property, so they would be used for parklands only, so we've done that. We have been in the process with the state of New Jersey in doing, the first phase is site investigation. You have to go through, we've done extensive testing because you have to identify exactly what are the contaminants, what's the extent of the contaminants, what are they affecting, waterways, etc., natural habitat. We are still in that process. Part of the reason for that is it's a hurry up and wait. There's a lot of people that are vying for a very limited pot of money. So we'll do an investigation, and you get to a stage of when it's basically a contract with the state of New Jersey of what investigation you're going to do. We've done that now twice. I think we've received upwards of $500,000 or no more. Because,
It's about 800,000 last time I checked, but that was only partial funding that we got. We haven't gotten it completed because, as you know, environmental cleanup sites, whether they are municipal or privately owned, are a long-term solution. They're not a one-year solution.
And we did identify the drums, the containers, etc. However, it is a bald eagle foraging area. We can't even just take samples along the waterway without having a permit for it. We actually had to hire a professional, an expert who works with Fish, Game, and Wildlife that goes in and they look at the contamination and they look at the wildlife, and their report actually has to be presented to the state of New Jersey to say, is the contamination so bad that it's worth disturbing the natural habitat to clean it up? Or is the contamination not so bad that, and the habitat would be affected so much that it should stay exactly how it is? That's the process we're in exactly right now. We're wrapping up probably now phase 4 of the investigation only for this. And to date, all of the investigation that has been done has not been by using Red Bank taxpayer funding. It's 100% funding from the state of New Jersey through the hazardous discharge site remediation.
And that included the demolition and removal of the contaminated incinerator building and smokestack.
Right, that's where the borough used to burn all their garbage back in the day. There was a big incinerator there with a smokestack. Some people might remember that, but that environmentally was a big hurdle. And that's how we first got involved with it. That came down. When that came down, we started testing the ground for contamination.
Okay, so.
And we're actually obligated at some point or another to change that, to eventually wind up with a park there. That's the agreement all the way through. Like, we're held to see that through.
Or we have to
reimburse.
Gotcha. So, just a question, didn't that smokestack come down, I guess, 4 years ago now? About, or so?
About that.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
so,
about that.
So about 4 years ago. Now, has anybody, if we're having trouble with the state of New Jersey, I know, has anybody alerted our state legislators to this? Or even not, or not even just ours, but the ones across the river, like, I don't know, we have 6, right? Joe Carrillo's, Amy Hanlon, Declan O'Scanlan, Jennifer Beck, Caroline Casper, and Mary Pat Angelini, right?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, that's what happened because we were in a 2-year waiting. We had submitted our, for a second round of the most recent round of funding, we had submitted our application. We were told we were in line to get funding. The Kroc Center came in Camden, kind of gobbled up pretty much all the money that was there, but yet we were told we were in line, and our legislators helped push us through. We got funding, although it took 2 years. So we had first round, we had done some investigation. waited 2 years, got additional funding, now we're finishing up that process.
Got it. So of those 6 people, did anybody think to say, hey guys, why don't you guys come take a look at this and come look at the drums in the water and call somebody at Fish and Wildlife or whatever department we have to deal with this at the state and say, hey, look, this is old construction equipment. God knows what the hell that is, okay? So it's old construction equipment. Nobody knows what it is. And nobody decides to take them and say, hey guys, let's all go down here, check this out. Is there something we can get done or something we can get expedited so that we can, number one, take a sample? Because what you're telling me is,
We have samples.
okay, so we have samples.
Yeah.
So if we had to go through that hurdle to get samples, can we not get somebody to go take these drums out of the water and just place them on the
I think
tanks?
she just explained that we did have experts doing that, and we're waiting for the determination of whether we can have to take it out or should take it out, or whether we should leave it.
Right.
We're doing that. We're doing everything you just accused
Yeah,
us of not doing.
Right, I get it, but why has nobody known about this? Why is this, no, publicly,
Senator
publicly.
Beck-
Publicly.
Beck is extremely well aware of it.
Right.
In fact, the park issue that we had on Locust Avenue was really her baby, the nature park. And she's very well acquainted with that entire riverbank. In fact, she was the one who introduced me to, who's the young lady that used to do our environmental work?
Lady what?
She went to Trenton, and she lives over in Philadelphia now.
Lady what?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Lady White.
Yes.
That was her legislative aide that was in charge of this
And
project.
she wrote letters of support for every one of these efforts.
Yeah, so everyone has been on board with respect to this cleanup. It's not, I realize that you're against, let's say, the plastic bags. And I realize you're very angry regarding the
55-gallon drums in the river.
55
Yeah, you bet. I'm really mad because, you know,
and I appreciate the timing of this anger, but I do think that you have to appreciate that we've been committed to clean up this for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's one of the reasons why it's been longer, because many, some of the council people out there have been living here all their lives, and they knew about the garbage dump over there and the incinerator, and it was this council that decided to clean up 4 years ago, so we were able to work with Trenton and get us money, and we were able to work with the DEP to protect our environment. We're also able to work with the DEP under Christie's administration to test the drums, and also to make sure that our national emblem is not disturbed in their testing. I think that, thank God for our legislators who have been working with us and cooperating. I think it's been pretty good so far.
And what you can do is talk to your legislators and ask that they put more funding in the brownfields funds so that there is more money for projects like this to clean up sites, because all it takes is one large site at the Meadowlands or the Kroc Center in Camden, and it's all gone and we're still in line.
Mm-hmm. So just one more time. So just walk through this with me again, if you don't mind. So we've tested the water. Is the water okay? No contaminants? Is that what you're saying? Is it good around, like,
You're not drinking from that.
Maybe he is, I don't know.
Yeah, well, hey,
You probably have to put a pot in it and burn something.
Hey, Mike, water's expensive in Red Bank.
Not that expensive.
So,
The answer's not as straightforward as you think, because when you find contamination, you have to determine the source. So we have monitoring wells, we have to monitor the wells, we have to look at tide cycles, because is the contamination coming from the water to the land, to the shore bank, or is the ground and the groundwater contamination contaminating the water?
So-
It's a very extensive process that takes time.
Yeah.
So we cannot go back out and do our samples until the DEP approves the report that our professional has put together to go out and do the additional sampling.
right, so.
But the sampling is scheduled for, I think within the next month, we work that out with the Board of Ed.
Okay, I'm sorry. So has water been sampled? Yes, no?
We have done some preliminary samples.
Okay, so
But
as
the
of right
second round
now,
of
we
samples-
do not know if that stuff is contaminated. We don't know. We just don't know. Okay.
We don't have, I can't give you a good answer.
Right, but the answer is you don't know.
Mayor, how long was that
That's
garbage
good.
dump over
That-
there?
that-
100 years.
Dump over there.
It was over 100 years. The smokestack was about, I think, 60 feet tall. I remember the smoke going into the neighborhood when I used to go to school there, River Street. And the happiest day for all the neighbors on Sunset Avenue was when that wrecking crew blew down that smokestack, and they were cheering. Of course, there was a lot of dust and other stuff that accumulated. It's a long stage process. As Stanley and Christine have said, this has been a multi-tiered process. It's not going to be over in 6 months. It's not going to be over in all likelihood by next year or the following year. And part of the problem is that these are expensive, extraordinarily expensive projects. Any municipality that is doing it has to rely upon state aid. And as Senator Beck has clearly indicated to us before, not only when she was on the council, but now she's a state senator, is that your legislatures can do all of the lobbying on your behalf to try to get the money. At the end of the day, the people of the state have to make value decisions on how to apportion those funds if there are emergencies that arise. And so even though we're at the funding level, I believe it is a long process. But the important thing is that we are moving forward, we are making progress, and anyone dealing with DEP knows that it's a long, cumbersome process in terms of even getting responses and administrative resolutions. But we're trying. I mean, our engineer is working on it, and certainly the people in the neighborhood know that there's been progress, even though it's not as fast as most of us would have liked.
Yeah, Mayor, even though the incinerator was there, it was also the landfill for the borough of Red Bank.
Well, we didn't call it a landfill.
We didn't.
We used to call it the dump.
As years progressed and things have changed, the borough was required to change how they remove garbage and get rid of it. That piece of property has sat there, and what has gone on there, taking down a smokestack is a fraction of what has happened over there. All paid for by the state, not with the town's money. And I think when we're using the state's money at this stage, the first stage was to take the smokestack down. They had to test that for a while. That came down, and now they're testing the grounds around it to see how they're going to handle that. At the same time, when they run out of funding, we're the last ones, I wouldn't say we're the last ones on the food chain, but the money goes somewhere else. It's free money. Instead of dipping into our budget or our pockets here in the borough of Red Bank, the state had that program, which we got on. And I won't say we're at the state's mercy, but when they don't have the funding in that pot to continue to finish testing the waters to see how far we can actually go with the project, that's where we're stalled at right now, and that's what we're waiting for, so we can move on. We've had plenty of discussion about how the park would look or what it would look like, from a boat launch to a soccer field to a theater-like area. That's pretty much the third phase. To keep it simple, after they clean it up and they say, listen, the site's been decontaminated, for better lack of word, and you're ready to go, and they're willing to pay for the park after that as well. So it's during budgetary restraints here as far as funding, free funding from the state of New Jersey to clean up a bad site that's in the borough of Red Bank. We have to be patient and, knocking on doors. Senator Beck is always in our corner. She's always gone for open space. She was very much a part of Count Basie. As far as way back in the beginning, we were talking about AstroTurf before we found the proper funding for it. So, we've been on it. It's just that we're at the end of this rope with the state. So hopefully that premolition comes around and we can finish up and we can move along.
I think, Mayor, as a result of your cordial relationship with Senator Beck, but also Governor Christie, that we've moved great ways in working to get our open protection, our open space, and clean up our rivers and our tributaries. And I just noticed in the paper the other day that I thought Fairhaven just is concerning banning smoking in their parks. I guess it includes not only the funny cigarettes, but also the regular cigarettes.
They did, but we have not taken that action, so. I mean, there is no smoking in the playground areas, and that's common sense. You don't want to smoke around little kids in the playground area, so that's bad.
Thanks, Mayor.
Anybody else? If not, is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, I'm sorry. One more resolution, sorry about that. And of course, now that we have another resolution, we have to open it up to the public. Resolution to change the meeting date from November 20th to November 25th at 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
Second?
Second. All in favor?
All in favor? Okay, anybody want to be heard on that resolution to object? Not? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Carried away.
turkey dinner
Per
here.
council president.